Hello, this is Chris Creekmore, host of this webinar, and happy for everyone who is joining onto this webinar. I hope you'll find it very informative and not scary. It's really not. We love living here at the coast of North Carolina, and it's nowhere near as intimidating as one may think. We got several people that are joining on and just going through kind of some helpful hints for how to make the most out of this webinar. You as a attendee of the webinar have a Q&A box. So feel free to add questions in anytime that we're going away. Raise your hand. So if you scroll to the bottom of your Zoom box, you should have an ability to raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, I'll open up your mic so that we can talk and chat about any specific question. So if you don't just mind, just as a practice, if everybody would just raise your hand just so that I know you're hearing me, and that way we know that you're able to find that box. Great, great. Awesome. So we're right on time. So there may be a few more people joining us, but we're going to go ahead and get started. This webinar will be about 20-25 minutes, and then as long as you want for questions. So I am, everybody I assume can see my screen, and let me enlarge this here, go here. All right. So this webinar is to answer questions that people may have about environmental and weather considerations if you are going to live at the coast of North Carolina, and how to prepare for hurricanes, flooding, and just other environmental factors. So we hope you find it very informative. I've got a great guest panelist here. Laurel Bellamy has joined us. She's my insurance agent, and then a couple of agents that are on my team that are joining us here today as well. So this is going to be recorded. It'll be on our website so that you can go back and revisit it at any point in time. So if you go to retire2nc.com and look for the events tab, you'll see a whole library of webinars that we are creating. I've been in the real estate industry for this April will be 30 years. Seen a lot of ups and downs, but the last 14 years I've been specializing in the active adult communities here at the coast of North Carolina. I am a North Carolinian. NC State is, I didn't graduate, but life goes on. Born in Okinawa. I am the team leader for Creekmore Realty Group and power my business through EXP, and married to my beautiful, witty Cindy, and I'm continuing my trek to complete the Appalachian Trail. I am joined today by Laurel Fox.
Yes, now Fox, not Bellamy anymore.
Not Bellamy. I know. I want to say.
I know Bellamy. It's hard. I still sign my name that way sometimes, so it's okay, Chris.
Yes. So Laurel has been my agent for many, many years, and she's very, very experienced. So Laurel, just quickly tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am now a Wolfpack by marriage, an NC State person. So we've got that in common. Okay, go Pack. I am a lifelong resident of North Carolina, but not just North Carolina, Brunswick County. This is home, and this is where I've been my entire life. I've been with Farm Bureau. I'm an insurance agent for 15 years now. And before that, I was with a custom home builder in the area. So this is what I know, and this is all I've done is work with clients moving to the area and building homes, and I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, you have always been great to work with, very responsive, great with my clients.
Thank you.
Just been a pleasure to work with. You'll see as we get towards the end of the presentation, what's the advantages of working with a local realtor or local real estate agent. Clearly, Laurel has got, she's seen it. She's seen it all over here. So thank you for joining us. I am also joined by two other members of the team, the CRG Creekmore Real Estate team. That's John Del Judas and also Karen Pig. Just say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you
Awesome.
for joining us.
Hello.
So living at the coast is beautiful. We love living here. But does it come with some challenges? Sure. Wind damages to shingles and, with bigger events, you'll see flooding sometimes is an issue, but mainly these issues are the islands or areas that are close that are attached to a creek or some other body of water. So nothing to be too frightened about. Seriously, we've been living here, we endure it, and nothing is going to make us want to move. So let's just talk about logistics for a moment, okay? So you have your barrier islands and you have your mainland. So the benefits of the barrier islands, they do offer protection for, wind and surge that is coming on to the mainland. All our barrier islands they're not connected, which is why they are islands. You can go down to Myrtle Beach. They call it the Grand Strand because that's all connected, very continuous strand. We find our islands here in North Carolina to be far more beautiful and appealing. So, and also give us some great protection. So focusing on Brunswick County for the moment, although we, CRG Real Estate, we do help people in New Hanover County, which is Wilmington, and now also into Pender County, which is just north of Wilmington, which is becoming very, very popular as well. The majority of the communities, if people are calling us Creekmore Realty Group, it's because we specialize in the active adult communities. So the active adult communities are on the mainland. There's not enough room to put a Brunswick forest on an island and have pickleball and tennis and golf courses and all that. That's not here in the coastal region of North Carolina. There is some proximity to Myrtle Beach, but then it also has its pros and cons there. So just wanted to explain a little bit about, mainland versus barrier islands. Again, your Q&A box is open. Feel free to drop any questions at any point in time in the Q&A box. Can I get insurance? Laurel, I just bought a house in Crow Creek. Can I get insurance?
Absolutely. Fortunately, yes.
Yeah, so you and I talked earlier, and we talked about, Florida is having some issues where they can't get insurance, but North Carolina, we're not having that issue. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, Florida, California, we're here on the news. It's a scary time for folks in those two states. Fortunately, in North Carolina, some things were put in place years ago to help keep that from happening here. We have what we call the North Carolina Joint Underwriters, the North Carolina Insurance Underwriters. It's a pool of all the A-rated admitted insurance carriers in North Carolina. So we're all in the risk together versus individual companies running the risk going bankrupt, trying to pay out claims after a widespread wind event. So that's why many A-rated companies, insurance companies in North Carolina, we separate the wind and hail out, and you've got two policies. So unlike on the coastal counties, that is. So unlike if you bought a house in Raleigh, North Carolina, or if you bought a house in the mountains of North Carolina, when you buy your home down here, you'll have two policies. And we do that so the individual insurance company is not taking on that full risk themselves. We want to continue, we all want to continue to write insurance on the coast. And that's how we put it together so that we can. And that's another reason why you've seen prices increase with all companies around the country, is because you want the insurance companies to stay in business. So the premiums have gone up so that we've got the reserves to pay out the claims when we do have that big event.
So the last thing you want is to, have an event and then the carriers say, well, we'll cover part of this, but now we're dropping your insurance. We're not covering.
Exactly.
So, but the good news is here in the great state of North Carolina, we're good, right?
That's exactly right.
We're good. So talk about insurance rates. What affects insurance rates?
A lot of things. Building costs have gone up, as we all know. Over the last 5-10 years, they have dramatically increased. Well, that means if you have damage to your home, it costs more to repair it. So that is one big reason insurance rates have gone up. The other reason is reinsurance. So although our little neck of the woods here in Brunswick County, we've not been affected by one large storm that has caused massive damage, the entire country and the world has had massive damage. And every insurance company, we buy insurance as well. We're hedging our bets on buying insurance. So we're not taking on that full risk. Reinsurance is what the insurance companies buy, and those costs have gone up 40 to 50% over the last 10 years. So we in turn have to then put it back into our premiums. So again, although our little neck of the woods here in Brunswick County, we've had some storms, but nothing that caused massive damage. Our rates have had to go up because of reinsurance, because of the rates that we have to purchase insurance has gone up.
So we're going to give some examples in a little bit so that you put a realistic dollar and cents to what does it cost to insure a home, wind and hail, fire, theft, and flood. So after Florence, people thought, oh my God, Florence, right after Florence, insurance rates are going to go skyrocketing. But that wasn't the case. We didn't see insurance skyrocket. It's over a period of time, and it's not one specific storm. It's something.
Exactly. It's many storms.
Conglomeration of things. Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's of many factors that come into play that cause the insurance rates to go up, and it's not one storm or, oh, this happened, so we know they're going up. It's been a combination of things over the last 10 years that have caused them to go up.
Which, by the way, Florence 2018, but the last big storm that we had that came through Wilmington was 1996. I think it was Irma or something like that.
And the one thing about it is it's hard for us all to swallow when premiums go up, but we want them to, because we want the insurance companies to have the money to pay out the claims. We want the money to be in reserves so that when there is that big storm, everybody gets taken care of.
Yeah, it's just like a homeowners association. You want the homeowners association to be stable and have reserves, which is why a lot of new communities have what's called a working capital contribution, that once you buy a home, you will put $1,200 one-time capital contribution, which keeps the HOA stable such that you don't have special assessments. Same general premise.
Right.
So let's talk about flood zones. Okay. So all of Brunswick County is in a flood zone. It's just
everybody's in a zone. It just depends on what zone it is. That's right.
Right. So some zones require extra insurance and some zones don't. So can you talk about, so an X zone would be like the majority of Brunswick Forest, the majority of Compass Point. These are communities that are in our area, like the majority of Oyster Harbor where I live. Most of the homes are in an X zone. So
Right.
they're at elevation high enough or away from a body of water that can crest. So give.
That's correct. So an X zone is what is commonly called a preferred zone. And you won't be required to carry flood insurance with a mortgage in an X zone. Although I always suggest you getting a quote and thinking about it just to make sure, because there are, it's FEMA goes out, the federal government, they're putting these zones together and they're just going off, basing things off of historical factors. So I always suggest get a quote and think about taking it anyway, even though you're in a preferred zone and it's not required. Typically, not always, typically the premium in an X zone is minimal as well.
Okay, so if I'm in an X zone like Brunswick Forest and I want to get just the security of knowing, then I can get it.
That's right. It's available.
Okay, all right. So, and we're going to talk here. Let's talk about some examples. Okay, here's some real life examples. I'm going to change that. Okay, so here's a home. It's an existing home. It's not a brand new construction, but here's a home in Brunswick Forest that is for sale, and on Endora Court. And so let's talk about this right here. I don't know if people can see this, but I'll zoom that in. So here is a flood insurance quote for 115 Endura. And what are we looking at, Laurel?
$852 for the year.
Okay, so that is just for the flood insurance. Okay.
That's
and,
right.
Right. And then, well, let me go back here for a second. So that's building coverage and content coverage.
That's
All right.
correct.
All right.
And
What
that's
if
with the lowest deductible. You can raise the deductible and save a little bit, but that's the lowest deductible option.
All right. So this is just damage. So this would cover 250 or total 350 in personal content and damage. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. So by the way, anybody on the, any attendees, if you have any questions as we're going through these examples, feel free to drop a question in the Q&A box. All right, so here, this is the total homeowner's policy. So cutting to the chase, so same house, total premium is $2,718 for a house that is valued at
$550,000 as the replacement cost. So God forbid you lost your house, fire, tornado, hurricane, $550,000 to build it back.
okay.
2718 for the year.
All right, so explain to me the premium here, 1478.
So we're going to scroll on down and we're going to ignore that one because you've got the additional discounts and things like that. And then we're going to,
all these.
we've got,
okay.
yeah. And then you've got the wind and hail premium, because as I mentioned earlier, that's a separate policy, but I just typed it on here so that we could see it all together. So the wind and hail in Leland, this is a Leland, North Carolina residence, is 1770. The homeowners is 943 and the wind and hail is 1775. So you add the two together to kind of get a budget for yourself, 2718.
Okay, and so then if I add flood insurance onto that, then I'm somewhere around 2,600 a year if I added flood insurance onto that. So what's Carolina Partner Discount? What is that?
Having your auto with us, several different things that calculate into that.
Okay, all right.
And a newer home. some discounts for that because it's, this home was built in 2017. So that's another factor in your insurance cost is the age of your home.
Gotcha. So let's look at another example. So that would be, let's close that. Let's go back to here. So let's look at a house in St. James. So part of St. James, maybe a third of St. James, flood insurance would be in an AE zone. And then the majority of it is not in an AE zone. So, you know, I didn't even check if this one was in an AE when I gave you the example.
It
But
is.
it is in an AE?
It
Okay.
is.
All right, well then that'll be a great example. So let's take a look at that one. So insurance, let's go to Loblolly. So flood insurance for this house in an AE zone, same amount of coverage, 350,000. We're looking at 1,100, so about $200 more than the home in an X zone in Brunswick Forest.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So let's look at the wind and hail policy.
So we've got homeowner coverage on this house at 675,000. This is a more established, this is a 2002 construction, so it's a little bit older. So you can
Okay.
see the premium difference. So we've changed the neighborhoods and year that it was built, so you can see the premium increase.
Okay. So typically an older home would be a higher premium.
That's correct.
So people on the panel, or not on the panel, I'm sorry, our attendees, if you've not seen my latest newsletter, talks about the cost of a new construction versus the cost of an existing home. General cost of an existing home is higher. You don't necessarily always get what you want in a new build because you don't get to choose exactly what you want. But if you're doing a total cost analysis of what am I going to buy, what am I going to live in the coastal region of North Carolina, older home typically will cost more per square foot and cost a little bit more in insurance. So just things to consider. And if you didn't get my last newsletter, please drop something in question and say, Chris, send me the last newsletter. All right, so here's a home in, let's go back over here. Okay, so this home in Crow Creek. Crow Creek is in the southern end of the county. Just to help people along here, move this out of the way, go here. All right, so Crow Creek is located in the southern end of the county, southwest end of the county, let's say that, because all of Brunswick County is south because our beaches face the south. The Loblolly example was in the Southport region, which is St. James. And then earlier we talked about the house that was on Eldora, which is in Brunswick Forest, which is up in the northeast portion of the county, closer to Wilmington. So let's look at the Crow Creek example. This is a brand new home, new construction home. About 80% of Crow Creek is in a AE zone. So let's take a look at your example for this house. So flood insurance for this house, same coverage, 250, total 350 for contents and building. So not much different.
This is an AE zone as well. So flood insurance is not going to take into consideration the year it was built and things like that. They're looking at other things. So this premium though is very similar. It's 1140. This house is in an AE zone as well.
Okay. So wind and hail for this new home.
So the replacement cost on this home, this is a newer home.
Yeah.
The replacement cost, there are some nice, some upgraded features in this home versus the Loblolly home. So I've got 725,000. So if you had a total loss on this home, we've got 725,000 to build it back. You'll note that the premium is 4,063. So it is less.
So
With that,
even
with
though
the
this
year.
is in an AE zone, it is a newer home, and the insurance rate is, including flood insurance, is about what it was for, no, still less than the one that was in Loblolly and St. James,
Yes.
even adding the
It's the
flood
age of the
insurance.
home.
As we get towards the end of this webinar, we'll make sure everybody has Laurel's contact information. If you have any direct questions, or let's say you're considering a house, you saw one online, say, hey, I'd like to know more about what it would cost to insure this house, reach out to Laurel. She is an excellent resource to get answers for insurance rates. Either something you already own or considering to own. So if anybody has any questions about those examples, feel free to put them into chat. So we talked a little bit about, well, we talked in great detail about flood insurance, wind and hail. So some insurers may require higher deductibles, yeah, for an island. If you're on the island, insurance rates would be much higher on the island, correct?
The premiums are higher when you cross the island. They, generally at least $1,500 more for the same value, the same home would be $1,500 more over on the island. So absolutely, they are more, because like you mentioned earlier, the barrier islands are protecting the inland here in these neighborhoods. And so the islands are the first ones to catch the damage.
Right, exactly. So we're not citing too many examples of barrier island homes, vacation homes here for this webinar. Webinar is really more about mainland in the active adult communities for those of you that are watching this. So National Flood Insurance Program, can you explain that a little bit?
So you've got a great slide here, and the National Flood Insurance Program is a federally backed insurance program. I do see a question here. Flood insurance typically at $250,000 regardless of the value. Where do you get it? So yes, the National Flood Insurance Program only covers up to $250,000 in coverage. So you saw the same amount on each one of those examples, even though the coverage on the homeowners and wind was more than 250. So that's the maximum amount that the National Flood Insurance Program will actually provide for any home, no matter what the value is. But you can purchase an excess policy if you would like to cover the entire amount of your home. So if you have a $700,000 home and you want to protect it up to the maximum of $700,000, you can purchase, and typically in all zones inland where we're focusing tonight, you can purchase an excess policy. Good question.
That's a great question, Chuck. And let me add to that, but feel free to add more questions along the way, Chuck. But Laurel, did you have any clients that owned property in Stony, I think it was Stony Creek?
I personally did not, no.
Okay.
But I had some clients that had some flood claims during a storm we had last year.
Okay. So did they have more damage than 350,000?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Everything was under the amount of coverage.
Okay. So typically the 350 is enough, typically.
Well, if the claims that I have had with flood insurance so far have been under the 250 maximum coverage on the house, on the structure.
Okay.
So going back to the National Flood Insurance Program, there are companies that write for NFIP, and Farm Bureau is one of them. So we actually take care of the flood policy, we underwrite it, we take care of the claims. So even though it's an NFIP program, you're still dealing direct with a local insurance agent and a local company, and you have that direct contact during the storm. When you have to make a claim, you've got a direct contact person to talk to and to help guide you through it as necessary when you need help.
Okay, all right, awesome. Does anybody have any questions about the National Flood Insurance Program? Okay, so is flood insurance required if you have a mortgage and you're in an AE, correct?
Absolutely, it's required, yes.
Okay, but it's optional otherwise.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So I don't know of a private lender that requires flood insurance in an X zone. Have you known of any?
I have
insurance
not
company?
had one, no.
Yeah. Okay. So what communities in Brunswick County or our coastal region at large would flood insurance be required? St. James, as an example, maybe a third of the properties are actually in an AE.
Yes,
Winding River,
absolutely.
maybe 20%.
Or less in
Or
Winding
less.
River. Some of those, homes that are closer to the river.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Crow Creek, there's quite a few. Brunswick Plantation, there's a large percentage in Brunswick Plantation in the older section, in the more established section that is in flood zone or hazard zone requiring flood insurance.
So what would I look for in a home that I want to buy in a community that has historically been in an AE zone? So this is a house. It's actually, we were looking at this example earlier. It's one of my listings in Crow Creek. It's 9307 Old Bed. It's for sale, 809,000. So the builder put the first floor above. So he did a flood elevation survey and built the first floor above that elevation level, whatever that is. So AE below here, X above there. This, just so you know, because when you drive your car into the garage, because we have the garage, you have to, not have a slope and get into the garage. Once you get into the garage, you have about 4 steps to get into the house. So this is what we call a flood vent. It's I think it's required to have that. But anyhow, if you are looking for a house that is historically in an area, ask the seller or the listing agent to provide a flood elevation certificate. If they cannot provide that, then you may, in your due diligence, get a surveyor to do the flood elevation to confirm that the first floor is above that flood elevation level.
That's right. You can rate, in the past, 4 years ago, previous, we could not even rate a home without having that elevation certificate. Now we can give you a flood insurance quote, but the premiums could potentially be better if we're rating it from that elevation certificate because of the things you're talking about, Chris, because then we'll know if the home is higher than the base flood. What you're, with your example here where you've noted the height of the foundation, depending on how high that is going to affect your rate. So yes, you can get a flood quote without an elevation certificate, but it typically will give you a better rate if you've got one.
So as a buyer's agent, one of the things that we would advise or in negotiating our offer with somebody that's in a flood area, if they don't have a flood certification, then as a contingency or a part of our offer, the seller to provide one.
That's correct. I would.
And it's elevation certificate, that generally costs what, $400?
Around that, 4 to 6, yes.
Okay, all right. If anybody has any questions about this slide, certainly let me know. So here's a couple of companies that we've used for surveying for elevation certificates in the past, or just surveying in general. Trans Systems is one that we use more often than others, but we can help you get that, or get the seller to provide that.
Yes, typically on a newer home, it was required during construction. So even if the seller doesn't have one in their files, if it's a relatively newer home, you could get one from the building inspection department to try to save some money there.
Okay, from the building inspection department.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So then you would go to the Brunswick County BCAR, or
Yes, or the town that you're in,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so certainly we can help our clients get that. So we went over some examples. You and I, Laurel, talked a little bit earlier, a home 350,000 for wind and hail. That may be a little bit on the low side, but our examples in general in the 550 to 950 is
Oh,
more or
yes.
less in line.
That's correct. Those are good numbers to help folks be able to budget what they're going to expect with insurance rates here.
Okay, this is just wind and hail, not including flood.
No, it's a homeowners and wind, but not flood, correct?
Right. So again, anybody that's watching this webinar and wants to get an exact quote for a house that you're considering to buy, Laurel Bellamy is your person. She can answer those questions for you.
And I don't mind really if you've seen a house online and you're just curious because you're trying to plan, just give me a call, or and I'll be glad to do a quote for you so that you know, because it does range greatly from, as we've already mentioned, whether you're in Leland, North Carolina, or Calabash, or if the home you're looking at was built in 1999, or whether it was built in 2024, your rates are going to vary greatly.
So we will have Laurel. In fact, if you go on, let me show you something here. In fact, Laurel, I don't even know if you knew that this is on here, but if you go on to our website, let me go to it real quick, and look for affiliates. A little slow to load, but give it a second. And then look for, where's our insurance? Oh my God, Laurel, I thought we had that updated. So go back to the website soon, because you'll see Laurel Bellamy on here on the affiliates. So
Not a problem.
yeah, we just didn't have them on there, sorry. By the way, we're updating the Retire to NC website all the time. So we're adding great stuff and great content all the time. So please save it as one of your favorites. Fortified roof, you want to talk about that real quick?
Well, the fortified roof program has really taken off over the last few years, and it was put in place after some extensive studies by the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Did massive studies in South Carolina, their testing facility. They put houses together inside a huge testing facility and simulate hurricanes. And then they've come up with designs on how to keep your house more stable during a hurricane. And the fortified roof is the first level of safety. If you can keep the water out of coming through the roof, then you've protected the house. So the North Carolina insurance underwriters, who we've mentioned, they're the ones that if you've got your insurance with them, they will help offset the cost of this fortified roof. So if you own a home and you want to replace your roof with a fortified roof, there are extra expenses because there's a lot of extra materials, time, labor that goes involved in installing this fortified roof. So what the North Carolina insurance underwriter said is, hey, we think, or we know now from experience and testing, that this is going to reduce the amount of claims that we have. It would behoove us to help pay you to put this roof on. We're going to have less claims. So that's what's happening. And people all up and down the coast now are doing it in North Carolina, and they're having really good results. And the North Carolina insurance, they're very pleased with what's happening.
So
They're
if I'm
seeing
a seller,
Mhm.
my house will be of a better value or at least more attractive if I have a fortified roof. And so if we're looking for a house to buy, we definitely want to investigate whether or not it is a fortified roof, because there'll be a certificate for it.
It would be. It'll be great. There's a certificate that goes along with it. And yes, there's a discount on your wind and hail insurance for that. So you want to make sure that if you're buying a home and it has the fortified roof, you get to keep that and you get to apply that on discount for your insurance.
So just what would be a general example of a discount? So let's say we were looking at $2,700 for that house in Brunswick Forest. What do you think that would reduce it to if that roof was fortified?
Well, I tell you, when people call me about it, I don't tell them you do it for the discount. You do it because you don't want to claim and you don't want damage in your home. So you're really looking at $200 a year or so. So
Okay.
you do that roof and that extra work and that extra money, you do that for the long haul so that you don't have a claim later and have to move out of your house because water came in, sheetrock fell down, your carpet's saturated. That's why you're doing it. But you definitely, want to get that little discount as well.
But $200 will buy a couple of dinners.
Exactly.
A
That's what
year,
I say.
Awesome. Okay, Chuck, another good question. Thank you. When I talked with Kent about using a fortified roof, Kent is a builder. For those people that are watching the webinar, they do not know what it was. New home or needed. Okay. So Kent is the builder, and most new construction builders, to be quite honest, most new construction builders are not building the house with a fortified roof. So that may be something that we could talk about negotiating with the builder that we want that for your home. And if so, what would that cost be?
And
So
Chuck, it's not required by any means. It's
yes.
not a requirement. It's an extra.
Right. Yeah. It's something that we found especially on older homes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I have folks call me and they say that they're going to be replacing their roof, then yes. But if you replaced your roof last year, would you want to go through it? No. But if it's time to replace your roof, then yes, you would want to go through with that process.
Yeah. Good question, Chuck. Something that we can definitely explore in more detail. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, certainly keep them coming. So what is it like after a storm? We're kind of going over a little bit of time what I planned, but just really quickly, the biggest discomfort for us is a road outage. Really. So this is an example of a road that was out in Southport that they closed it. It'll be back open in May of this year, but there's a route around it. So was it a bit of a discomfort? Sure, for those people that are down in Southport, but it happens. So as an example, there was, I think we had in September of last year, we had a torrential downpour, and I think we had 2 spots on Highway 17 that were washed out. And I think it was 5 to 6 days that we had to drive around, but it wasn't weeks, it wasn't months. get it corrected. And it's about a priority. You know, a major artery like 17 is a priority. Get that fixed. But when you have an easy roundabout to circumvent this outage, then it's less of a priority. So primary insurance versus secondary insurance. So a rental home would be more to insure.
Yes, typically they are, because you've rental, you've got there's a higher risk, you know, the owner's not in there all the time. So insurance companies will typically have to charge a little bit more because it's a little bit of a higher risk.
Okay. Coming up to the end of this webinar, I hope you found it very informative. It is recorded and it will be on our website. You can go to the events page of retired2nc.com and you can see all the, not all of them, but our most recent webinars. So I hope you'll follow that. And certainly having an experienced local agent is, can't stress that enough. Laurel, thank you
Thank
for
you.
being on the webinar with us. I will get it fixed where the affiliates, where you're listed on the affiliates.
Yeah, thank you. But no, what you just said about having a local agent for your real estate needs and your insurance, things like that. You know, I'm here, your agent, you know, a local agent is here, boots on the ground after a storm, taking your claims. The claims department for Farm Bureau actually works out of our local office. So as soon as the roads are clear and the power is on, before the power is on, but the roads are clear and they can get here, we're at the office taking claims. Our claims adjusters are in the office working. So it's a different experience. You know, you actually call our office and our cell phone numbers when you need us versus an 800 number where you don't know who you're talking to. So, you know, every company's different, but that's how we operate.
And Laurel's familiar with these neighborhoods and communities. So
Right.
she's been great. So if anybody has any questions, certainly now's the time to ask them. We greatly appreciate you getting on. We certainly have our webinars are recorded, so they are going on to the website, and we're here to help you in all steps of the way. We are continuing a webinar series that is how to plan and execute a successful retirement to North Carolina. So please stay tuned or follow our website, Retire2NC, that's a numeral 2, or onto our YouTube channel at Crickmore Realty Group. In fact, this webinar will be on the YouTube channel as well for people to watch and ask questions as they watch that as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. We hope to hear from you sometime soon, and certainly call us with any questions at any time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Laurel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.